Hey everyone, it's Talon, and today I just wanted to share with you 5 tips on how you can improve your tanking in Mythic Plus. Over the years, I've learned a few things, and I definitely have more to learn, and I want to continue to grow. But I wanted to share some of these with you in hopes that we can all grow together and enjoy this game more and more as we progress our skills, time more dungeons, get more loot, and ultimately just have a ton of fun in the process. So some of these tips, they might lend themselves better to a group that are communicating via Discord or utilizing voice chat. But there should be much here that is applicable to pug groups that aren't utilizing voice chat. So also, I won't be getting into specific tank classes, but rather I'll be using some examples that you can then take and apply to the tank class that you enjoy. So let's get into it. 5 tips on how to improve your tanking in M+. So the first step I have is to understand the role of a tank. So to understand the role of a tank, I first want to talk about the role of a healer. Since Mythic Plus is all about completing the dungeon within a certain time frame, everything's going to boil down to how fast you kill things. With this being said, the healer's job is not to top the healing meters and just pump out as much healing as they can every pull. No, healers contribute to M+ in greater ways when they can heal as little as possible and spend time dealing as much damage as they can. I know this sounds counterintuitive, and yeah, sometimes the healer does just need to stand there and keep people alive. But when a healer is able to deal damage, trash packs die faster, bosses die faster, and the key is completed faster. So this is where we come in as tanks. Our job is not just to take damage, but rather to take as little damage as possible, and the damage we do take should be smoothed out by our active mitigation abilities and our big defensive CDs. So this means that our defensive CDs are not just panic buttons that repress when we're low health, but rather they're buttons we use preemptively to avoid as much damage as possible. Remember, a CD is massively devalued the longer it remains unused. So when you have a big CD ready, this should enable you to pull more trash at a time or live through a really dangerous pack without the healer having to babysit you the entire time. Now, this does take planning, some trial and error, and learning when best to use your CD and when to save it for maybe a pack that's coming up that's more dangerous than others. But we'll get to that more on our next tip. Another role for the tank is that we set the pace of the dungeon. So as a tank, we're the ones initiating the pulls, or at least we should be. So get to know which packs to pull and which ones to avoid. Plan your routes with Mythic Dungeon tools. I'll link that at the bottom. So you don't waste time pulling more trash than you need to or having to backtrack at the very end for missing count. Pull things in a consistent way, but don't be stuck in a rut if you find a better way to do something. So by this I mean face the packs away from the DPS and face them in a way that way every time you do the dungeon. This will help the DPS know where they can stand and be safe. And by being consistent, it will also help you time your CDs. As your group progresses in skill and gear, you'll begin to see where maybe you can pull extra packs because you have a big CD ready or a pack that wasn't as scary as it was before. Second, know your class. And I know this can sound sort of basic, or you might say, well, yeah, duh, of course. But what I mean specifically is that you should understand the mitigation profile of the tank you're playing. Are you a warrior that excels in taking physical damage but has little self-healing? Or are you a death knight that relies more on self-healing with Death Strike? Knowing this will help you utilize these abilities at the best time rather than wasting them. Knowing that Word of Glory, the Protection Pally's healing spell, is more efficient when it's used at lower health will help you not waste holy power on a heal when it could have been better used for Shield of the Righteous. Know what active mitigation and defensive CDs you have available. Active mitigation are the abilities that cause you to take less damage and that are not on long CDs. So like Vengeance Demon Hunters only have 2 charges of Demon Spikes, and so they'll have larger downtime in their active mitigation and rely more on self-healing, whereas monks basically have active mitigation if you do your rotation properly. Between YouTube, Discord, Icy Veins, and Wowhead, there's so much information out there. And so join the class Discord, and I'll post those in a link below as well. And check out the tank channels. Find all the important information in the pins and ask questions in the channels. I've benefited so much from these channels, and I know you will too if you check them out and start learning from there. Now, a lot of this information bleeds into our next tip, which is know the dungeon. Now, at some point, yeah, it's going to be everybody's first time experiencing a dungeon, especially as we go into Shadowlands, but be as prepared as you can before going in. You can check out our video series that we've been putting out, this Shadowlands Dungeon Trash Guide, to see in-depth breakdowns of all the trash mob abilities, and you can find other YouTube videos explaining the boss fights, or just check out the in-game dungeon journal to learn about these abilities. In general, we want to know things like, well, is the dungeon magic damage heavy or not? Dungeons like Shrine of the Storm in BFA has a lot of casters and magic damage going out. Or the main room in The Other Side is very similar to Shrine, with quite a few packs having heavy magic damage. The Necrotic Wake in Bastion, on the other hand, is split, with the front half being very magic damage heavy, and the last half being almost exclusively physical damage. With this information, we can see if perhaps there's a talent that we can take or change that will help the damage profile of the dungeon. Specifically with the trash, we want to know if there are mobs that we should avoid because they're not efficient to kill or just too dangerous. Perhaps there's a pack that's unavoidable without a rogue shroud, and you need to have a defensive CD ready to tackle it if you don't have that rogue. And bosses are similar in that we want to know what abilities might one-shot us if we don't have our active mitigation up during a hit, or maybe they don't deal any blockable damage, so wasting resources on shield block if you're a warrior won't help, so you spend your rage on ignore pain or using a CD that helps. And lastly, we want to be aware of when to move the boss, and to do so in a way that helps DPS main high up time on the boss and kill it as fast as possible. The fourth tip is to be aware of your party's abilities, and specifically if they have cooldowns of their own ready. If the DPS have their CDs ready, this actually should enable us to pull more packs. We shouldn't be pulling packs of like 2 or 3. We want to utilize those abilities, because remember, we set the pace of the dungeon, and the tank is going to have a huge effect on how much damage a DPS can pull off. With regards to healers, it's very important to know their CDs when they're available, their CDs are available, and to ask them when needed. I treat my healers, external defensive CDs, as another CD that I have available to myself, and I ask for it when I know I don't have any of mine, or just use that to rotate into my defensives that I have. So when you're asking for a healer CD rather than having them just guess when to use it, you avoid CDs being overlapped or just being wasted and sitting unused, gaining no value. So I highly suggest using a WeakAuras add-on to kind of track these things. I highly suggest Nagi's Party CD WeakAura. I'll link that below as well, to help track these abilities. It's going to take time to get used to knowing what to look for, so don't try to learn them all at once. Just start with 1 or 2 abilities and continue to add to your knowledge as you progress. And the fifth and final tip is to communicate your actions. Now, this is something that I can always be improving on. Sometimes I just get into the zone and I forget that my team can't read my mind. So communicate what pull you're doing next if someone isn't familiar with your route, or you're changing something up. Be on the lookout for patrolling mobs that might accidentally be pulled, and telling people to watch out and to move away from them. Communicate if you don't have CDs for a big hit or an active mitigation that's down for a bit. This will help your healer know how to keep a closer eye on you for that time. Maybe you need to move the boss for some reason. Let the team know so that they can adjust accordingly and not just get smacked by a boss ability. Also, some things we communicate can eventually become understood without even needing to say them over and over again. I have target markers bound to my Alt 1 through 4 buttons, and each person in my party knows that if I mark something with a skull or an X, it's assigned to a certain person to interrupt. Not having to say, you interrupt skull and you interrupt X, this frees up my mental space to communicate other things. And it also allows room in the Discord for the other party members to communicate something that might come up. All in all, communicating your actions is just going to help everyone adjust as needed. And as you do this more, you'll know what to communicate, what helps, what doesn't. So yeah, there's the top 5 tips on how to improve your tanking in Mythic Plus. One thing to note before we close up, don't be discouraged if you feel like there's a lot to change now that you have to do in your playing, or a lot of information here that you have to put in practice all at once. Take it slow. Just work towards improving at your own pace. Maybe just take one tip and work on it until you feel comfortable with that one, and then move on to another. Let me know what you guys think of these tips in the comments below. Maybe there's something that I missed, something you liked or didn't like. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to learn from you guys as well. But yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. It really helps out. And hey, come stop by and say hi on Twitch, twitch.tv/TalonX. It's always cool meeting new people and chatting with you all. So yeah, it'd just be really great to hang out with you guys. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.